Okay, here we're going to start our frozen desserts demo, talking about our ice creams, sorbets, gelatos, sorbetos, granites, frozen yogurts, sherbets, a lot of different frozen desserts, and they're going to be using a variety of different bases. So your standard ice cream, those are going to be your French style, your custard style bases, right? Ice cream 101, standard ice creams, essentially is a cream on glaze with the introduction of freezing cold temperatures and the incorporation of air. As the temperature of the custard base starts to drop, enough structure is solidified so that it can incorporate air and starts to grow. It builds a foundation and brings us to our second topic, the different qualities of ice cream, okay? In your book, you're gonna see talking about overrun, talking about mouthfeel, and talking about smoothness. Overrun is the big one. What we talk about all the time with ice cream production is the overrun, the amount that it is grown. A lot like when we're talking about bread and maybe whipped creams or meringues, we're looking for it to double in size, incorporate air, and rise. That's going to be the same thing that's going to happen with your ice cream. And a lot of your recipes you'll see at the top, the yield is variable, it depends on the overrun. That's going to be dictated by you. You dictate how much overrun you put into your ice cream, how long you freeze and churn that ice cream for. And then that is going to drop down and dictate your mouthfeel and your smoothness. For example, too much overrun, your base can be chunky, icy, not a great texture anymore. You lower your overrun, you're going to see more of a rich, smoother texture. Too much dropped, and then you can maybe see a solid ice cream. There's no air incorporation, so you're really not having an ice cream anymore. It's just that cream on glaze that's been frozen, so it's going to be a solid product. The overrun really does dictate the mouthfeel and the smoothness, and we control the overrun, okay? When we talk about overrun, it's a lot like bread proofing or whipped cream, meringue. You base percentages off of how much it's grown. So if the meringue has grown, the ice cream, I apologize, the ice cream has doubled in size, we talk about 100% overrun, right? When anything is doubled, it's typically 100% of its original size. 50% overrun would mean it's only grown about half of its original volume, and the overrun does dictate the final mouthfeel and smoothness of your ice cream. So as you can see here, we have our basic vanilla ice cream recipe in the book and all of your other variations down here. As I was saying on one or two of your assignments, if you have a variation that you're trying, you try to base it off of another variation. So I'm trying to do a nutmeg ice cream. Well, nutmeg and cinnamon are very similar spices, so I would maybe start there with at least an amount that I know to add in, okay? Kind of use those. As you can see here, like I was telling you, the yield is variable depending on overrun, so we dictate how much that you're gonna get out of this. The actual recipe, the custard base, will probably yield about 2 quarts, but then you start adding overrun into it and it will start to grow and increase in size, okay? When we are talking about ice cream flavors, we talk about 2 different things. We talk about the base flavor, which you can change. A standard chocolate ice cream, that would be the full custard base turned to chocolate and then frozen through the ice cream machine, right? Essentially, it's very similar to making a chocolate cream on glaze or pastry cream. You make that warm custard base, ice cream base, and pour it over chocolate until that chocolate is melted. Stir it in, and then you will have a smooth chocolate custard base. The burr mixer that we are getting for you guys is a great tool for making ice cream. They use it a lot to flavor their bases and do different things like that. So that's one way of changing your flavor. The other is talking about inclusions, adding different inclusions into your ice cream. And that's gonna be different particles, different, let's say, chunks, for lack of a better word. That's gonna be your coconut. The best example is a strawberry ice cream, right? Think about the standard strawberry ice cream from your childhood. The actual ice cream is vanilla still, right? There are just whole frozen strawberries added into the mix, and that's when we're talking about our inclusion. So strawberry ice cream technically would be vanilla ice cream, and you could just take pieces of frozen strawberry and fold them in at the end, okay? Here you can see there's a little bit of a recipe that you can follow if you would like to, but essentially that's the basic formula, the basic idea. Thinking about maybe like a turtle ice cream, or a better example would be a chocolate caramel ribbon ice cream. That's where we're gonna put our vanilla base through the ice cream machine first, allow that smooth ice cream to come out, And as it's coming out, we're going to gently fold in our inclusions, okay? So here we have the beginning of my ice cream base. I'm using the mint julep ice cream recipe that I attached for you guys in your ice cream assignment. No mint, no bourbon, and I wanted to make a chai tea ice cream. You could essentially use the vanilla ice cream recipe in your book. Either way, I am steeping chai tea bags in my cream from the recipe, and then I'm going to make the recipe just as is. So what is the recipe that we're talking about? Talking about a creme anglaise style custard, right? So we already know how to go ahead and perform those basic steps. Tempering our eggs into our cream. The mint julep recipe, you can see, doesn't have a great basic breakdown of the procedure in the recipe. So just like your creme anglaise, you are going to take your cream and or milk, heat it up first. We're going to add half of our sugar into our milk, get that started, and then we are going to combine our eggs and sugar, and we will temper them together. Then we need to bring that final product up to about 180, 185 degrees, not curdling, but thickening our custard, and then we should be ready to go. Let's see if you guys can see me. There, okay. So, you can see my pan right here. I'm gonna go ahead and get my cream that's been steeping in the chai tea in my pan. Get that warmed up. It smells really, really good. And put about half my sugar in there. Start getting that warmed up. The reason why I like this mint julep ice cream recipe is it's really, really rich. In your book, it does say gelatos tend to have no or little egg content and a lower fat content, so milk instead of cream. But what is a gelato? We know a gelato is a really smooth, rich custard, right? So how do we achieve that? A heavier fat content and a heavier egg content. And what we get is a really, really smooth and rich product, as well as controlling the overrun. We keep overrun at about 50%, and you will get a nice smooth, something that I could essentially call a gelato, a chai tea gelato. So we're gonna go ahead and start heating this up. I'm gonna go ahead and combine my eggs and my sugar. The sugar content is the most important when we're talking about making proper ice creams or sorbets. If the sugar content is too high or too low, you can make things too icy, too sweet, too dense, doesn't hold up, doesn't stay a good texture in the freezer over long periods of time, can fall instead of holding the air incorporated in it. A lot of different factors that can happen. Having a proper sugar content is going to help you out in the long run. There is such thing as a hydrometer, a proper tool that you can use to check the sugar content, but if you are using the standard recipes in the book, 9 times out of 10, you will be okay. The hydrometer, in my opinion, would be for starting your own ice cream shop and you wanted to make your own recipes. But once again, I would always use the recipes in the book to start as a base. So our cream's pretty hot here, so we can go ahead and start tempering it into our eggs. Small amounts at a time, make sure we keep stirring. Now, this is a base that we're making, okay? If your base is flavored, you're not adding inclusions, you're just trying to flavor your base, I do suggest that you continue to taste your base before it goes through the machine once all the ingredients are added. For example, this might not have enough spice to it. It might have a little bit, but I want to make sure that that flavor, that chai tea flavor, is really strong and potent. I might add a few more of those spices, the cardamom, the cinnamon, the nutmeg, the different things that spice the chai tea, so that I'm going to get a really strong product. As soon as we have all those incorporated, we're going to go ahead and get this back in the pan. And we need to bring it up to a low 180, 185. Start to coagulate those egg proteins. Slide you down here a little bit. Here we go. If you are going over direct heat, just be careful. Real low and slow. And since you guys have already seen Creme Anglaise, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video here. Make sure that you fully thicken your egg proteins. Once this is fully done, we need to cool your bases down before we can go ahead and freeze and start to incorporate air, okay? Okay, so here we have our sorbet recipe, and you can see a bunch of different variations. As I was explaining before, the sugar content is extremely important, so making sure you follow your recipe is extremely important, right? The different variations are set up because each different type of fruit has a different water content and it has a different sugar content, so this is supposed to counteract that. So for example, if I'm doing a grapefruit, we have citrus, orange, or tangerine, or a lemon or lime sorbet. One of these would probably be your best bet. Raspberry, strawberry, melon, or kiwi sorbet. You've got melon here, raspberry, kind of higher in water content, maybe a watermelon sorbet could be used. Mango and papaya, pretty much interchangeable, right? And then you have a good berry version over here, adding cinnamon and different flavors into it. Use your variations. This recipe is extremely simple, okay? So I have right now my sugar syrup dissolved, boiled, ready to go. Boom, and then we just take that off our heat and we let this cool. And we're gonna add our puree into this base. Once we have our full sorbet base completely made, we will then cool it and need to put it through our ice cream machine or use our Cold Stone. This recipe does say to fully cool our syrup. I'll be honest, I'll let it cool down just a little bit and then I'll go ahead and add the rest of this puree into it. So I'll see you guys at school and we'll go ahead and put this through the machine. Okay, so now we're at school. The professional ice cream machine. Remember, this is still the same basic concept, Ice Cream 101. We are freezing and incorporating air. So even if you have the small KitchenAid model, it's still the same concept. So we need to get this machine up and running. It's on now. We're gonna go ahead and pour our base into the top reservoir, okay? Remember, overrun, right? This will grow in size as it incorporates air, so we need to account for that. We do not wanna fill it all the way up to the rim. We wanna fill it underneath the rim, a substantial amount. A lot of times if you buy these ice cream machines, they will tell you the amount that you should be putting into your ice cream machine. We are then going to run this base for roughly 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how much base you put in here. As you can see, I actually didn't put that much. So in 6 to 7 minutes, it might be done. We are looking for a soft serve consistency. The same soft serve ice cream that you eat at McDonald's. That's what should be coming out of this machine when we are finished. It will then set up in the freezer, okay? So we are going to turn this machine on to run. I have to shut my lid first, and then we will set the time. That's really all this machine is doing, is telling us it's freezing and churning, and for 10 minutes, okay? So here you can see we've got 2 minutes left on the timer. That means we've been running for 8 minutes, and the consistency that we have in our ice cream is completely changed. It's elastic, almost like that Booza video that we were watching. Extremely creamy. This, in my opinion, is pretty much ready to go. If I keep going anymore, I'm increasing the overrun. I'm getting a chunkier, crystalier, icier ice cream where I want a nice, smooth, clean product. And that's what I have right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start ejecting this out into containers. And this is when I would be adding inclusions. If I was doing a, best example, Rocky Road ice cream, and I want to add all those chunks of nuts and marshmallows, I'm going to be sitting here and ejecting the ice cream out of the machine. And as it's coming out, I would be dropping chunks down into there and gently folding with my rubber spatula, okay? So as you can see there, that's a really great consistency, and that's what I want to see from my ice cream right there. Sorbet is going to be the same thing. It should be looking those same textures. Even though there's no cream content, there's such a high sugar content that it comes out looking almost creamy from your machine, okay? So once again, we have that nice soft serve consistency. This is that raspberry sorbet that I made, and we should be able to see it come out smoothly in the ice cream machine. And that's when you know you have a nice clean product like that. That puree lightened up a little bit as the air was incorporated and as it froze. Really nice product. So here we're going to do the quick cold stone demo, just like in the ice cream machine, incorporating freezing temperatures and air. We can do the same thing using a slab of marble, getting it down to some really cold temperatures and pouring the base over top, and slowly incorporating air and allowing it to freeze. A lot like Cold Stone Creamery. You see there, they're adding the inclusions in on top of that Cold Stone, but essentially they could use that same Cold Stone to churn their base and make their ice cream, okay? So for here, I put my marble slab into the blast chiller down at -44 degrees. If I was doing this at a live event, which we've done before out in the public, we put a dry ice slabs underneath the marble that was able to keep it cold enough so that we could sit there using a Cold Stone throughout and making fresh ice cream for all of the patrons coming out. So here I have my marble slab, and it's kind of hard to see, but it's actually really cold. You can see I can wipe the frost there a little bit. So it's down to -44, and it's only going to stay cold for a little bit of time, but the marble's really good at absorbing different temperatures. So we've got this nice Cold Stone. We're going to go ahead and pour our base. This is not straight puree. This is my base that I made earlier. So I'm going to pour a little bit of my base down on my Cold Stone, and we're going to allow it to freeze just a little bit. And then we're going to start to scrape it, incorporate some air. And what you're going to see is a product similar to what we just had come out of the ice cream machine. Now, your ice cream coming out of the machine, or technically on the Cold Stone, is it fully finished on the Cold Stone? Not really. It does need to set up a little bit more in the freezer. So essentially what you should be doing is churning this until it's that soft serve consistency, and then allowing it to set up in your freezer for roughly 24 hours. That's going to be your best bet. You can already see there, I have ice cream. When we did this for Winefest, we did a peach Bellini with real champagne in it, a sorbet, and we did it all on a Cold Stone with a piece of dry ice underneath, and we were able to make ice cream all day. Now this technique though does get a little bit icier than say the ice cream machine, so do your best. You can buy these, you can buy a Cold Stone that you can use at home that you put in your freezer and pull out on Amazon, Walmart. They have them at a lot of different places. And look at that. You can already start to see what we have there. It resembles ice cream. This is that raspberry sorbet. Once again, this is that raspberry sorbet. Look at that. Oh. Then we're going to flatten it back out a little bit just to get a little bit more of a chill on it. I'm going to go ahead and try a little bit. Oh, delicioso. This is the color. We're looking for a little bit more of an opaque color, so we'll allow it to freeze just a little bit more. It changes that color just a little bit. That's what we're going for.